Snowflake Ocellaris Clown Fish. Clownfish are quite fascinating marine creatures. It is such a sight to see a group of clownfish swimming in and amongst a sea anemone. Clownfish can be trained to eat fish pellets or fish flakes. Here in my fish tank, my Snowflake Ocellaris clownfish enjoys the premium quality dry fish food. They could be fed a live fish food diet, but I have made it simple, whereby I use high quality fish food without the need for thawing frozen foods. Frozen foods, if not properly fed, can lead to unwanted waste and producing unwanted nutrients in the tank. My clownfish also enjoy the availability of live copepods in the tank. Copepods are very tiny specks in comparison to the rest of the tank. There are hundreds of them crawling along the glasswork. These small crustaceans provide another food source for my clownfish. Copepods are often a positive sign of a thriving and stable environment within this reef tank. Clownfish live in symbiotic harmony with the sea anemones. Quite often, people can get confused to which creature hosts the other. As a matter of fact, the anemone hosts the clownfish. Clownfish have a special layer of mucus or slime on their skin that help protect them from the anemone's stinging cells. They are one of the only few species that can survive the sea anemone's deadly sting. Sea anemone provide clownfish with protection from predator fish, and in return, the clownfish is able to clean and remove the anemone of any parasites. They also help chase away other fish that may attempt to consume the sea anemone. Clownfish never stray far from the sea anemone. This mode of protection is short-lived for the clownfish. If they leave the host anemone, they could lose protection and immunity from predator fish. This immunity must be regularly maintained by the clownfish. Clownfish are hermaphrodites, which means that they can change gender. At birth, they are gender neutral. In the wild, they're often schooled together in and around their anemone. The most dominant clownfish in a group of clownfish or harem will become the female. The next dominant will be the male. The rest of the clownfish in the group will have to establish a rank amongst themselves. Clownfish will continue to squabble over each other for dominance by nipping at each other. The male clownfish often twitch vigorously as a sign of submission to the female. When the female dies, the next dominant male clownfish will become the female in a process called protandria. Not all clownfish from the same clutch or group stay in the same anemone for the rest of their lives. After a pecking order or rank has been established, some clownfish may wander off to find a new group to join or a new anemone. Clownfish are also demersal spawners. This means that they lay their eggs on a substrate or surface, which can either be a rock, aquarium glass, or clay pots. Clownfish have the potential to breed at around 1.5 to 2 years of age, depending on environmental factors. A female clownfish will lay between 100 to 1,500 eggs approximately every 2 weeks. The clownfish eggs then hatch between 8 and 10 days later. If properly fertilized and cared for by the male, clownfish eggs will survive until they hatch. Once the female has laid her eggs, the male clownfish cares for the eggs, fanning them with his fins and using his mouth to rasp away algae. He watches over the eggs closely. Even though clownfish are generally good at raising their own babies, a few circumstances and environmental stress may lead the male clownfish to eat their own eggs. It is generally the male, since he is the one tending to the nest. With success, what will hatch are tiny clownfish larvae, which are about 3 millimeters in length. The newly hatched larvae, however, require special feeding and care for continued survival. In the wild, baby clownfish and its larvae form feed on floating zooplankton and phytoplankton. The most common type of food fed to clownfish larvae by clownfish breeders are live and cultured zooplankton called rotifers. They are microscopic aquatic creatures that eat algae and in turn provide some nutritional value to the clownfish larvae. Here in my reef tank are paired Snowflake Ocellaris clownfishes and my ever-growing collection of Tequila Sunrise Anemone. Although there is a need to properly cycle the reef tank with the correct salinity, monitor water parameters, and temperature beforehand, these small fish are very fascinating creatures to care for. I've been fish keeping for 5 years now. Fish keeping is one of the most rewarding yet challenging hobbies that I've ever experienced. This hobby can be quite rewarding and joyous.